Welcome to New Dad Gaming, a show about gaming, fatherhood, and new fathers trying to figure out their gaming lives. My name is Trevor, and I have a 4-month-old, actually, as of yesterday. Gavin?
Ooh, congratulations. My name's Gavin. I have a almost 2-month-old.
My name's Jeff, and I'm going to stick to a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
Come on,
No
Jeff. It's been a couple
bonus.
weeks. You haven't crested past that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm going to stop for one thing though. Are you noticing, I'm only noticing my face popping up, but your face is swapping back and forth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks with me.
Mine never pops up on my own, but I
Oh,
never see mine pop up on my own.
okay, I got
So
it now, because if I did not want an hour worth of podcasting just to be my face. Just like, and the crowd goes wild.
that's a
Most popular
Victorian
podcast
edition.
ever. Jeez. Okay. All right. Welcome to New Dad Gaming, a show about gaming, fatherhood, and new fathers trying to figure out their gaming lives. My name is Trevor, and I have a just turned 4-month-old.
My name is Gavin. I have a 7-week-old.
And my name's Jeff. I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
So it's kind of nice is that for those listening and not seeing this, we all have a varying degrees of stubble, which is probably a good, probably a good indication of how we're all feeling right now. I get the feeling I'm not the only one who had an awful week. So, like, gentlemen, how were your weeks from a gaming and baby perspective?
Baby perspective was pretty good. We had some solid nights. We had some party nights. But all in all, doing well. Gaming wise, though, a little bit here, a little bit there, but not a whole bunch.
Okay, what are you? Are you still on Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time, or what are you into at the moment? And Dying
Uh,
Light, I guess you had mentioned.
yeah, playing that, some Dying Light, also the Metro series. Slowly working my way through
Mhm.
that. I find the chapter setup on it quite digestible in size. So, the amount of time I might have, usually I can get one of those levels done pretty quick. And yeah, they did a lot of for the console version. They did a lot of updates to it to help with it just kind of feel. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit nerfed, and that's why I like it. But compared to the PC version, it's a little bit less punishing. So if the stealth kind of falls out from under itself and you get seen, it's not the end of a level. You don't have to restart. You can usually try to frantically get yourself back on top of the winning side. Um, so it's kind of I'm playing it on easy, which is also something I've started doing because I just don't have time to trial and error. I just want to move through. I just want to push on through to the end.
Yeah, I can kind of remember that with playing through Dishonored, where first time like I was really adamant about I just want to do this like super stealth wise.
Yeah,
And
no,
then
get the no killing achievement.
man, I wasn't that bold. Like,
Oh, I
so,
tried. I tried, and that's why it's still on my shelf because it was really hard because you'd have to like render people unconscious and then hide them up on top of chandeliers so other people couldn't find them. And I'm like, how's this not going to kill them? Oh, it doesn't matter. And then one time I had to redo an entire level because I rendered somebody unconscious and then hid them behind a box, but then they got eaten by just random NPC rats,
crazy.
and that counted as murder apparently.
Oh,
It's
well,
like,
you
well, I
threw them
didn't like.
towards the rats.
No, I sat him down gently next to a dumpster. It just happened to be full of rats that were apparently very hungry.
It's like, all right, buddy, live and let live. You go on your merry way. Turn around for a
Yeah,
second, like, no,
yeah.
damn it,
No,
rats.
stop.
Oh, yeah, but man, I'd have to restart. Like, I restarted so many times because somebody just randomly saw me, or yeah, that was like going for stealth can be so frustrating. Like when playing, like it's incredibly rewarding and really fun when you pull it off. But man, the stealth through it's always just seemed to be such a act of frustration.
And I think that's the thing with stealth games, especially the newer ones too. If you're playing a newer stealth game, chances are if the stealth goes south on you, you can usually still play it. Like the level doesn't restart. But when you grow up playing like the original Splinter Cell and like these really like Thief and games like that where stealth is paramount, it's like you can't break that old habit. So like if you get seen, even though like technically you didn't fail the level, you could just keep going. like there's that part of us because we're so used to the old grueling, very, very punishing stealth games that are like, no, got to do it again, got to start all over again. Like, I got to do this entire mission undetected.
It's also you against like the game too, right? So if the stealth fails as the game mechanic, that sucks
Yeah.
too. Because playing Metal Gear now, if a guy sees me way over on a hill somewhere, I'm like, how did you? I'm used to the vision cones. Remember the vision cones?
Yeah,
And
just
you
like
could just navigate around the corner because you knew where they were looking. That's what we need back. I feel that's.
And I love how nearsighted all the enemies were with those vision cones.
I know it was great. You could crawl underneath them almost, and
Yeah. Like, no peripheral vision. They
Yeah.
can't see past 3 meters in front of them.
Yeah.
Like
now it's
they're like
laser
all
eyes.
the people who wouldn't have been drafted in the war. Like
work on this base. That's all they're
Our
yeah, it's
society
everybody
is
work
like-
here. It'll be okay. It's just a bunch of like nearsighted klutzes, heart murmurs, and it's just like, okay, everybody go on this base. It's all right. Nothing ever happens here. It's just a cushy security job. You just walk this particular route down this hallway and just repeat for 8 hours, and then we'll send you home.
Yeah, so this is just a cardboard box factory. I don't think there'll be any issues at all with that.
Yeah.
Don't check the lockers. Don't check the lockers.
Don't check the lockers.
Nothing's in
The
the
day
lockers.
shift has all sorts of weird stuff in those lockers. Don't bother looking. You don't want to know what's in there. Just keep walking.
Be great. I'd love to see a kid who comes up with this, learning it, and then he asks his biology teacher, like, so how does a person's eye cone get defined exactly? Teacher's like, well, what do you mean by eye cone? Well, you see when they're walking around, they can just see you from this cone. Or
You're not the cone of vision.
yeah, man, that'd be a fascinating guest at some point. It's probably just a teacher and asking them what game related questions are you fielding now? Because like now that kids are like so entrenched into it, like
Geology teachers trying to explain that like mining in Minecraft doesn't work like that. Like that's not how you find diamonds, and that's not how you forge steel. Like it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah.
trying to ask like what breed of chocobo, like where on the evolution tree is a chocobo, and like,
Yeah.
you can also ask how to get the gaming, and then get somebody asking their biology teacher, how do you get the golden chocobo?
Like flashbacks. How flashbacks are you talking about? He'll freak out and run out.
Yeah, the best
Right,
part is he probably knows how. Like,
Yeah.
given his age, he probably is like, well, you see, what you got to do is race this
The
one.
people who are now the teachers in these schools are totally game literate, so they would have like either that or they would have like a really like, smart aleck response, and they just say like Monsanto or something, and then just be done with it, or like ask your mom.
Yes. So Jeff, sorry, we kind of just launched off there. How was your week from from fatherhood and gaming?
It was a horrible week. Horrible. I think I mentioned last week that my kids were sick, so I was getting a lot of time in. Well, now they made me sick. So all that, when they sleep, I sleep. So gaming has been limited to like the iPad and like games that they can see while they're awake and I'm awake. So some Final Fantasy VII on the iPad and Tearaway actually on PS4, which is an amazing game.
That looks really good.
Found that really awesome. Just the texture and the creativeness of it. It's absolutely insane. And it's nothing I would have normally, I guess, picked up. But there's a demo out, and it's kind of whet my taste for it. But it's really neat, and the kids have fun with it. I had fun with it, and then I passed out and woke up the next day. It's just worse than before. So.
We got a
gaming-
PS4 controller and empty bottle of
It's been
NyQuil, and
kinda
what happened?
Yeah, yeah. No crazy, no crazy gaming sessions this week.
Yeah. With Tearaway, is that like a direct port of the PS Vita version, or is it
Yeah.
like a special? How do they do that with all the various sensors on the Vita, though?
Well, they do it with well, now that DualShock, you can like rotate it, and with the touchpad, it's got the touchpad in it. So a lot of the motion stuff, and you actually create little pieces too, right? So you can draw your own. One of them is you have to draw a crown. So you draw a little crown on the touchpad, and then you can actually link it with their PS app. So on your smartphone, you can use it as a tablet. So a lot of that Vita specific stuff has been kind of kind of taken away and transferred to something else that works. And even the DualShock light bar acts as like a little like flashlight that your guy can go through, and there's little enemies in the game that change all the textures to newsprint. So you flash your flashlight, your controller on it, and control it, and it changes to the right texture. So it's kind of neat how they've transferred it from the Vita, because I never had a Vita, but that was one game that kind of caught my eye, and I lost track of it. But now that it's on the PS4, it's really easy to pick up and do. And it's all been, I don't know if it's been remastered, but definitely high-resolution textures, and it runs like butter. So it's a really neat game. And the fact that it's all paper and you step over the paper and it bends, just that alone is awesome. Like little details like that.
It kind of sounds like the Pixar of gaming, in the sense that, like, Pixar movies are great because you bring your kids because it's fluffy, but there's all this tactile, like, just stuff that you can enjoy as an adult into it too. And it sounds like that's very much a game that you'd have no issue showing to any kid, but as an adult, like, you're all about it. Like, it's still great.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat.
I find the same with like Rayman.
Yes.
Like, I find that's a game where there's that the substance in it is enjoyable enough that adults can really get a lot out of it, and a lot of appreciation, not just for the mechanics, but for the art and the animation, the movement, just that sense of weight that everything has, and that fun sort of squishiness. But then it's also something that's like completely, totally kid-friendly, like so kid-friendly that it's actually kind of designed for kids, except for those little pixie fairies. They're a little much.
Little suggestive.
Wee bit. But, French
No,
studio.
the fairies from Ocarina of Time, although like super polygon,
Yeah.
were still like, seems like people seem to have a pretty sexualized idea of fairies.
Yeah, and I don't know where that comes. It's not like in mythology. They're like, it's not like sirens or like mermaids where they're used to tempt like sailors to their doom. Like, fairies are always just there to hang out and, I don't know, point you in the right direction. Like, it's like Siri in an info desk. Like, it's not alluring by any means. Yet for some reason, the aesthetic that we have put on them is very sultry, even though they're like 4 inches tall, which is also just baffling.
Yeah.
So I just don't get it. Like, I don't know.
Ask a teacher. It's just
Ask your mom.
Ask your teacher, yeah.
the biology of this fairy. How does that work?
Oh,
It's covered in the new sex ed curriculum that it's okay.
objectifying fairies, the do's and don'ts.
Fairies, the do's and don'ts.
Oh, it'll probably just result in don't.
Yeah, it's really, there's no do's. Just don't do it.
I do wonder about
Yeah,
I can remember.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, what was that?
No, I'm just thinking about Burn Gully too. Yeah, you can continue. I'm stuck on fairies.
Okay, yes.
Whoa, fairy break. Just hold on.
Yeah, just gonna give Gavin like 5 minutes to clear his fairy thoughts, and we'll be right back, folks. Just thinking about. I remember, like, with movies, especially when you're growing up, there's kind of a weird, especially as you start to get a little bit older, but you're still too young for it. If the movie has nudity in it, like that being a particularly kind of odd part from, a kid. Like, no, you shouldn't. Some parents being super strict, no, you shouldn't see that, which is understandable. Others being like, okay, like you can see it, but like you should really understand a bit more what that is. Mm-hmm. And now I guess like what's so slowly starting to come up is some sexual content and nudity in video games. So it feels like there's going to be another affront to us as parents, as like what's the one with PlayStation that's mostly talking?
Well, it was Metal Gear, but not.
Well, I mean, heck, Metal Gear is perfect actually. Like Quiet.
Oh yeah, with Quiet, yeah.
Yeah, that's
like the suggested, like the silly costume is one thing, but it's like entirely another. Like the suggestiveness and the costume.
They try to explain it too. I haven't got to that. Like I don't have the game, but I've heard how they try to explain it, and that just makes it worse. Just the explanation does not make sense.
It's so weak. Like
it's like the explanation was done afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, where they're like, ooh, we're going to get a lot of flack for this, aren't we? Like, the internet's already starting to rumble and boil about it, so, all right, quickly, writer's room, everybody, let's meet up.
How can we make this
Let's figure out some speculative science fiction answer.
Yeah.
as to why she wears exactly 30 grams of clothing.
Yeah.
And go from there. So, yeah, it's you know, I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil it for our listeners. But yeah, it's another one of those weird things.
It's because
and, yeah,
she's secretly a bear, folks. It's because she's secretly a bear.
she's they had a growth ray and they shot a fairy.
Yeah, it's fairy.
There you go.
She's a fairy. I knew it. She's got magical fairy powers.
Magical
Right.
fairy sniper
And the
ability.
clothes didn't grow with her, right? It's just it's real. That's what would happen.
She's stuck in her fairy clothes.
That's it.
They didn't get affected. The expando ray only affects organic material.
Right. Huge sniper rifle with that. too.
So,
So, yeah, but I mean, that's got to be a concern. I mean, even Jeff, like you mentioned that, like, I can't imagine you play Metal Gear in front of your kids.
Oh god, no. There's no way.
Like me and Gavin could probably get away with it because baby don't know nothing.
You just hang him baby in front of the screen. No.
But yeah, like yours at an age now where they'd start to comprehend, and then you'd have to explain, like, why she dressed like that. You're like, there's not a lot of good reasons, son.
big old why? Just pointing at quiet. Why? I don't know why. That's like a year's worth of explanation.
No, yeah, I won't even chance that right now. It's all like Tearaway or Rocket League or Rayman's another good one.
Yeah.
Stuff that's easy for them to see, and they're used to cartoons and illustrations and stuff. So anything with art, when it's more real, like even real characters running around, they don't quite understand it yet, or they'll have a lot of questions. So if it's
That
like
makes sense.
somebody like a total character like Mario or something, not a problem.
Yeah.
But even Rayman, there's some questions like, why is that cartoon dragon chasing you? And there's no violence in it necessarily. Like when he blows up, he just kind of explodes, right?
Yeah, it's
in a
cartoon
way.
pop. Yeah.
Yeah. So they get that, but there's no way I'm going to show them like even the Marvel games, like the comic ones.
Yeah.
They're a little bit too much for them. Not the Lego ones, but the other more lifelike ones. They're not there yet.
Yeah.
So I can see even with just violence and nudity in general, it's going to be a little bit harder.
Well, that's the thing too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say with violence and nudity, like sometimes the faux pas of one is always placed above the other, especially in like cinema. Like you'll see the rating of a film be really, really high because there might be like a nipple, not even a pair, but just like one. But like they'll rate it like R because there's nudity and nudity, like very puritanical Western culture, like we're not allowed to see this stuff. But then there'd be another movie which would have like immensely more violence, but that one would wind up with like a PG-13 or something, where it would still be rated with like this, parental advisory and effect sort of thing, but it wouldn't get penalized as hard by the rating system for the violence as opposed to if it had nudity. And I think that's one thing that is starting to happen in video games as well, is that not that I'm for a whole bunch of nudity in games, but I think we're seeing it as well where when one thing happens, like when like with The Witcher, it gets a lot of flack for having like actual like scenes of people in coitus.
That's almost like polite, like quiet way to say that. Like,
trying to like class it up a bit here, guys. I'm trying to counteract all that fairy talk from earlier.
When a video game man loves a video game woman or another video game man, sometimes they...
When two non-player characters engage in consensual acts.
Sex ed taught through games. Perfect.
Yeah, part of the new curriculum, as I said. So yeah, no, I find like that game got there was a bit of stink about it in some articles, just about like, oh well, like there's this happening. It's like, yeah, but it's not a violent act. It's just two people engaging in consensual relations. It's fine. It's not that like the same game has the man cleaving another man in half with a sword, and nobody bats an eye at that. Where it's like, yeah, you just turned him into like a side of lamb with a broadsword, and it's like, oh, we're used to that, but nobody's seen a nipple in a video game in years. It's very rare to see it. It's like, it's like the double rainbow of of game rating system things. It doesn't come up very often, but when it does, it gets everybody's attention. I don't know.
What is that talking PlayStation game though? Because it had nudity in it.
Is
It
it
was
Heavy Rain?
Heavy Rain.
Heavy
it
Rain.
Heavy Rain?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that had some in it, but at least didn't really feel gratuitous. It wasn't looky,
No.
looky, like everyone's dancing around like as part of a storytelling, much like a movie would be. But ultimately, again, if like somehow that got into Jeff's kids' hands and they're playing
Yeah.
through that, it's like I don't think that's probably quite appropriate just yet for you.
Probably. It would have some questions, but not as many questions, or at least the questions would be probably, I'm assuming, easier to answer than if they had gotten a hold of a copy of like Duke Nukem 3D.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Yeah, with the mods, of course.
Or worse off, the newest Duke Nukem. Because then
Oh,
they would
yeah.
just be asking, why does this exist? And then you'd have to answer that as well.
And maybe that's just it, though. The Duke Nukem's a good point, right? When we grew up, that was the pixelated nudity that we were used to. And maybe now, because it's so real and lifelike, and you actually play a game where you're that character and all of a sudden there's nudity, you have that attachment again. Maybe that's what makes it a little bit more adult.
Yeah,
Could
there's
be,
not
but
that
even
separation.
but think about something like Leisure Suit Larry, which is super cartoony.
It always
but the-
comes back to Larry.
It always goes back to Leisure Suit
What
Larry.
was the rating on that one, though? That one was pretty high. Like Duke Nukem, I remember getting, I don't know, maybe the rating wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I don't know.
I can't imagine. I have a hard time believing they rated it R. But I think like the nudity was something you had like almost on lock, wasn't it? I don't think it was built into the game.
In Duke Nukem?
Yeah, because I think there was like the nudity part of it with the strippers and the money. I don't think was like the default. I think you had to enable it somehow. Like it was a cheat code or something. Am I remembering that wrong?
I think it was straight up. You just walked up to them
Yeah, I
and hit
think
a
it was
button,
like a
and then
strip
that was it.
I have a more pure memory of Duke Nukem, I guess. I won't have you besmirch Duke's good name on this show. Yeah,
I'll have to look up Larry because I think that was a bad rating on that one.
I hate to say it, but I think these games both might predate the rating system.
Maybe
The
they
game rating system didn't kick in until like the mid to late 90s, at least from what I recall.
yeah,
I could be wrong.
But even with the pixelation, it's just like, yeah, like I think with it being more realistic, it'll be trickier because it'll edge more towards just human nudity in a movie.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, but even with something like Leisure Suit Larry, where yes, it is cartoons and a bit more tongue in cheek as funny, but like the context and the aim of the game being what it is, it'd be harder to you'd want to be careful.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and like ultimately, you can kind of imagine too, like a well-meaning grandma at some point saw a Leisure Suit Larry game in the store, like, hey, my son likes games, and look at this all cartoony. This is great. Or my grandson, sorry. I'm gonna get him this like nice little video game. I bet he loves it.
Yeah.
And he proceeded to love it a lot.
Totally made his early adolescence, prepubescent life that much more confusing.
It's like there's not a mini game, and then we just go into the next step, or all the new curriculum, folks. One thing I guess that makes me think of though is with some of the cartoon violence, where it's almost like in playing to our generation's nostalgia, they've now made something seem so infinitely accessible to a younger generation. So I'm thinking specifically like Cuphead. I don't know if you guys have seen trailers for that.
Yeah.
And like I don't know that there's too much blood in that one. It's not quite as bad. I think you'd probably be even worse with something like Castle Crashers.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of blood in that, like tongue in cheek. It's not overly bad. Even better would probably be Binding of Isaac.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So it's a little eerie.
Yeah, so you have this entire kind of new genre that almost feels like it's playing off of our nostalgia to those old graphics and that kind of cartoon aesthetic, but which makes it so almost appealing to kids, where you could really imagine. Well, I was going to say Binding of Isaac, but ultimately it's a pink on the cover. It's like a pink guy crying. I don't think many grandmas going to be too tuned into that. But Cuphead, you could see a well-meaning grandma buying that for a grandson. Like, oh, look at this! Like, this is one of them video games you like, and it's got these adorable little characters without understanding at all, like just the narrative that runs through that game.
I think
That they're essentially walking heads full of alcohol.
Yeah, that's right.
Are they booze? Like they're not even like just tea and like.
No, I'm pretty sure they're full of whiskey.
It'd have to be.
I could be wrong, but I think I saw somewhere that they they fill themselves up and then just run on the town and they're yeah. All I know is I've been keeping up on the animation because it's all hand drawn and it's so nice.
It looks like it's stunning. Yeah, it's just so different from anything currently done. It'll be really interesting to see how that comes out.
Yeah.
But playing off that too, right? Like the whole grandma buying that game for the grandson. I think as dads now, we're so into the gaming culture that we can kind of read up on it and know what it's about. Whereas before, I think my parents stuck the Nintendo in my room and just I went upstairs to play. They didn't know they bought video games for me or I went out and spent my allowance on them, but they didn't know the content of it necessarily.
They appear to be just as innocent as Pogs.
Right. Pogs. Oh my god.
What trouble could he possibly get into with
dating
Pogs
or something? But you know what I mean? Like, so I think we can kind of better vouch for
We'll
games.
spot the Leisure Suit Larry or like
Yeah.
the Witcher Praetorian edition being handed to our like 6-year-old kid, and that's when we'll grab it out of their hands and be like, "That's Daddy's gift," and then we.
It's like no, that's for Daddy.
You can see this in 20 years, or when I beat it.
Yeah.
When I beat it. Let me beat it first, kid.
I don't want any spoilers on breakfast. Around breakfast.
Yeah, and you have a terrible time with secrets, son.
Yeah.
You're not gonna.
Start asking me questions about the game's content and totally giving away the ending.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, like it's. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much because it's like a pretty cliche conversation, but just around the introduction of violence to kids in video games, the classic online scenario of the 13-year-old being so amazing at Call of Duty, and just like that absolute unbelievable amount of violence. But at the same time, it's just funny because I think that for me, it would feel like a Leisure Suit Larry would be worse to a kid, to like a relatively young, like a 12-year-old, let's say, than a Call of Duty, because as much as there is like a bunch of like blood and gore and violence, like it's so abstract, like not abstract, but it's so gratuitous. It's so bigger than life, like just explosions and such. Like it'd be hard to relay that back into reality. Where like the Leisure Suit Larry is a very specific pursuit of a sexual encounter. So like, yeah. I think like as we're coming up, because like you said, Jeff, like our understanding of games, it's just going to be a bit of a different approach to how we do introduce it to kids. And it's just like, all right, I mean, this is a little bit violent, but you have a good enough understanding of it, and I'm not too concerned that this is going to tweak you in any way.
Yeah, like the worst game I've shown my kids personally is Street Fighter. So that's two people fighting. It's kind of cartoony-ish. It's not super real yet. And it's just because, like, my son is in karate, and he wanted to see, like, my favorite character is Ryu, so I'll show you Ryu. And I kept asking him questions. I think that's the point of this conversation, is to have communication, right, with your kid as maybe they're experiencing these things for the first time. So just to, double check, this is a game, right? And it's not in real life, and we don't use these, Hadouken moves in real life at recess, right? Like, so there's that.
Energy balls in the schoolyard.
If you
Sensei, can you teach me Hadouken?
Yeah. You can do a 360 power slam like Zangief, then by all means. Yeah. But I think he kind of understood it because it was that, it was sort of real, but it was still in the cartoon plane with magical fireballs and whatever. But
it'd be like watching an episode of like Avatar, where there's cartoon martial arts action that's Nickelodeon and totally geared towards kids, or Ninja Turtles or things like that. Like we all grew up watching Ninja Turtles. And they were doing ninja stuff with sharp objects and swords. Ninja implements that are actually designed to kill and maim, but they never really did. Unless it was a robot, like it was a little robot rat creature thing, they would cut it in half. But if it was a foot soldier, then they'd just bonk him on the head and kick him down a well. Which probably killed him, but we didn't see it happen, so it's okay. Yeah, I think both scenarios, both explaining like a game about uh, relationships among consenting adults, like Leisure Suit Larry, explaining that type of game. I think something like that is also, you know, it would be a game that naturally shouldn't really fall within a kid's gaming library. Like I think something like Street Fighter would naturally, but that's more of a game that's tongue in cheek for adults. It's a grown-up game because it's based on grown-up humor and situations that grown-ups should hopefully not relate to, but could also relate to, or at least understand enough, like they would by watching an HBO series. Um, but I think making sure that, as you said, like keeping an open dialogue with your kid and making sure that all questions are answered and that you're not just going to do that whole no, don't ask those questions, I'm not going to give you answers, don't worry about it, you don't need to know. And that adds like a level of mystique, which almost causes them to want to seek it out more and
Yeah.
want to learn more by other methods. Or if you remove the mystique and just flat out explain it to them and make it as mundane of an answer as possible,
Yeah.
and just the reality of the situation that, like, oh, this is a fantasy scenario, like this isn't how real people should interact. There's no Hadoukens. There's no, you don't have to buy X number of martinis at a bar to do this or do that. I think explaining that and removing and demystifying it a little bit, I think, helps, because mystery adds curiosity. Curiosity adds sometimes the allure of looking for answers in places that might get the wrong answer.
Yeah. I was kind of forced to almost not show him violence, but he was at camp all summer, and a lot of the Fridays was take your own device to camp day. I didn't send him with anything because that's a huge liability thing for me. I'm not sending him with any sort of iPad, iPhone, 3DS, whatever. I'm not. But other kids did, and they had fighting games.
Yeah.
So, and they were much worse. Like they were the
Like Mortal Kombat and stuff.
well, not that hardcore, but they were ninja games, and they were slicing people with the touchpad or whatever, and they split in two and whatever. They might have a little bit of blood or what. I found out what the apps were, but you can't control other kids at that point, right? So you kind of have to introduce violence, not nudity, but maybe violence and some other things when culture kind of dictates it. So people are starting to get this stuff a lot earlier in their hands, especially with kids going around with their own iPads and having access to pretty much anything they want.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's just like that is really the rub of it. Like, despite however you'd like to guide your kid in his digital exploration, especially with games, like some parent somewhere has given a 10-year-old access to the bloodiest thing you've ever seen.
Right.
So
Can't bubble them, right? It's
you have to be able to kind of roll with the punches and be able to answer those questions when they arise, because they're going to arise organically, and they're probably going to arise well before you're ready to answer them. So, like, I think it's good. I think, Jeff, you made a great point in the sense of sometimes, you can't get too attached to your schedule in regards to when you want to expose your children to certain things that this world shows us. Because chances are your kid's going to jump the queue and have those questions for you well before you're ready. Especially given the access to information that children have right now with devices.
Yeah, the internet-connected iPad.
right.
I'm trying to think about, like, 9 to 12-year-old me with that in my hands, just like, jeez, like the stuff I would get into, like just from a curiosity standpoint, like the searches you would do, like,
Yeah.
man, and you could try to like make them computer illiterate or never allowed to connect to the internet, or some things, and maybe at some point there's some decent fail safes you can put in, but yeah, like we're kind of going to be under a different type of barrage from this thing that our parents never really had to deal with.
Yeah.
Especially with those devices. Like, I found with the 3DS, actually, Nintendo's really good about parental access. They will block out, they'll like separate everything out. So do you want him to have access to the internet? No. But I still want him access to the Wi-Fi because I want him to watch Netflix. Okay, well, what kind of Netflix? The adult Netflix or kids Netflix?
That's
Kids
good.
Netflix. So it's like, it separates out a lot so I can give them that digital like education, without like exposing him to the entire brutality of the internet, where he's got a Facebook page and
Just trickle it in. Just trickle.
yeah, yeah. So they're really good on that. For every other device, it's kind of like you're relying on parents for one thing to lock it down, or the device itself, the software that comes with it. So I remember when people wouldn't lock down their credit cards and people were just giving it to their kids and they're running up, $3,000 credit card bills and in-app purchases. And so that's my fear. But I've locked all that stuff down. So it's spending the money.
Jeez, it's fascinating, man. Just like it's going to be so interesting to see what it's like when, like I said, because of our history and our enjoyment of games, especially as a youth, like just as the kid comes up into that age and getting assaulted on all sides from various different types of games of different maturity level, it's going to be fascinating. Like it's going to be kind of interesting to watch you, Jeff, because you're kind of getting into that now.
Yeah, I'm in the trenches now. Thanks, guys.
So
I'll report back.
Report from the trenches. It's a nightmare. Don't let your kid grow up.
Your new nickname is going to be Recon. Recon Jeff.
I'm like, guys, just go back now.
Yeah, keep them young. Man, so
buy a cabin in the woods. Get off the grid.
Yeah, so so just to kind of change gears a little bit. So you guys had talked about your week. Like my week was just an absolute nightmare. Like just so bad. Like just so bad. Like first, before we go any further, like Jeff, remind me how long your kids sleep every night.
Oh,
please.
God, yes. See, it's usually 7 o'clock, and they wake up at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So 11 hours.
Okay.
We get 11 hours in there.
I think once a week. Yeah, just I'm just gonna let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
And enjoy this moment. Yeah, because last week was just God.
Let me guess, so Trevor, bad. You got 11 hours total that week.
Oh yeah, I
wish.
Yeah.
God, because the thing that happened, so last week was awful, and then Monday was just the peak of it. Like it was just absolutely terrible. I probably slept like 1 hour in total. And he's such a happy baby, so like he's keeping me up. And I'm so tired, and he's smiling, having the time of his life. And it's just like, man, I'm happy you're happy. Yeah, I'm happy you're happy, but god damn,
Daddy's insane.
But then, we just had an awful week at work. Then like some really big things came up that just had to be taken care of, and unfortunately, like I ended up staying up until 5 a.m. one night. And then until 2 a.m, and this was like compacted on that first night where my son did not drop until like at all, like just for the 1 hour. And it was just, and the worst feeling of all of that was like when I went to bed at 2 and I went to bed at 5. It was just like the knowledge that the kid was going to be up within like the 20 to 30 minutes, like after I go to bed. So I've reached my finish line from work. I'm like, all right, I did it. I can go to bed now. The baby's like, hey, well, how you doing? I'm going to be up. Let me just wake up and cry for 4 hours. That'll be great. You're like, no, baby, please. Like, there's no finish line anymore. It just really drove home the fact like you just can't. You got to be careful about those type of sessions. Then from work or anything in life, because like little one is just going to dictate. There is no off button. You can't just catch up. Which still, despite 4 months, is still the thing that I struggle with. Where because before you used to be able to do a big batch of work or you stay up video game marathon, and then you could just catch up on sleep, and that does not exist anymore. Like it's gone. It is dead.
Yep.
Yeah, I found the same thing with my work as well, and just I've had to actually kind of change my expectations as far as output levels, and actually go through and readjust some of my own personal deadlines and stuff. Luckily, my projects are so far out that I can accommodate it for it. But it's really interesting, just the idea of before there's that, like, okay, I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone and just burn all the midnight oil, just go for broke, get this done, and then I'm going to pass out for 10 hours. And it's like, yeah, that option's not there anymore, so I can't, for the sake of being able to work the next day or even the day after, I don't have that recovery option anymore. So it's like I have to change my my running pattern, so to speak. I can't dead sprint things anymore. I have to be at a more even paced jog, or maybe one of the goofy Olympic walk. I'm just kidding. I like that event a lot, actually. But yeah, it's like you have to adjust your expectations from yourself physically and how much you can drain your own endurance, because you can't empty the tank because the baby's always going to need some. So if you go in if you come home or leave your desk and hit the pillows with a completely empty tank, that's exactly when the baby's gonna fuss, and that's exactly when you're like, I got nothing to do to deal with this.
Man, it's just like that, and there's the hope, like when you go to bed in that exhausted state, and you're just like, it's almost like you wish that I could extend myself somehow and reason with the baby, where it's just like, look, I know you're having a rough night, just give me 2 hours, and it'll totally be yours. And there's just nothing there. Like there's no conduit for us to have any type of understanding, and he doesn't have comprehension. So it's just like,
Nope.
you're and then like today I was sick. Like I wore myself down, and understandably and obviously I got sick. Don't matter. Doesn't.
Yeah, they don't care.
That's a shame. Enjoy it, because you got a lot of responsibilities still.
Yep.
Yeah, it's in my case, it's in the golden age, I would say. But when I had Jude at 3 years old, and then my youngest son Elton, and he was just born, that was beyond hell. Like that was because
Not gonna sugarcoat that a
I'm
little bit.
I'm
Or?
not, I'm not
No.
gonna say that. I'm gonna say, guys, if you're
That is sugarcoating it.
Yeah, that's a nice version.
Yeah. It was a night circle. Because Jude would be off the nap, right? So he would be out of nap. He would go all day. So let's say it's a Saturday. He would go all day until 7 o'clock, which is his bedtime. So you're exhausted just from that. And now you have a newborn to deal with. So you want a couple hours to yourself. You don't. And the newborn's going off. And it's like kind of what you guys are dealing with. And then you wake up to a little dude that's ready to go, and he wants to go to the park, and he wants to ride a bike, and he wants to talk to you all the time, and you can't.
Just like, oh man, that's not.
You just zone out and just kind of.
It's not reassuring at all. It's like,
No, it's not.
it's like what you guys are going through, except twice as bad.
I'm reporting back from the trenches. This is the first report.
Wow.
Just bring it, guys. Just.
It reminds me of something a comedian I really like, Jim Gaffigan. He was talking about when he had his, I think, 4th kid or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What's it like having like another baby when you already have a house full of kids?" And he goes, "Okay, imagine you're drowning, and someone hands you a baby."
Yep. Yeah.
And I was
But it
like,
gets good. It gets better. I'm not saying it's all bad.
It gets better,
It
guys.
gets better. It gets better.
Yeah.
A couple of years, no sleep. That's okay, right?
Yeah, and I think who
Did it
knows how life goes, but I think ultimately we would like a second. Not I've thought at times even third, but at least like we definitely want 2, and it's just And my brother, unfortunately, like he had his first, and then they like, okay, let's have another one, and they had twins.
Oh, see, that's it. No.
Surprise! Extra
No.
babies! Hey, congratulations, bonus baby!
I think the thought of it just made a little gray streak of hair on Jeff there.
Yeah, there's come twins would be wow. That's
Yeah, my friends are having twins, but it's like their first kid. So like they have other responsibilities, obviously, like pets and work and stuff, but it's not like they have a 3-year-old and then twins. But you know, there is always that school of thought where you space the kids out enough that like the one's old enough to kind of take the burden. Like you can't have many kids that way, or else you're going to be right into retirement. But like,
Could put a good 6 years between each kid.
yeah, it's like that whole farm families, and there's like a dozen of them. Like,
well, that's my parents. Like there's 12 of them or so.
Yeah,
and like just
that's a big family.
Madness, man. Like just the thought of having that many siblings, like that many kids.
And they
Although
probably weren't that spaced that far apart either. Like probably like a year or two between.
I think they were good Catholic folks, so probably not. Good Catholic farmers, so yeah, there's not a lot of space.
Nope.
The good thing, I think the only kind of funny part about that is that ultimately at some point they start to just it takes care of itself. Because as soon as you have a couple 12-year-olds, it's like, well, like there goes half of there goes like a third of the chores. Perfect.
Yeah.
And by the end, you just have like a minion of kids like serving you and like.
You control them, just go.
Yeah.
Finish eating my dinner.
It's like Pikmin. It's just like
Just dangle money and they follow it.
yeah.
Oh, so all right, so that's good to know from the trenches. Like it's
It's
some
just
hope
game.
in the sense of how long they sleep. Little hope as soon as the second one shows up. And
Yeah.
this like we'll be able to take screenshots of our like for those watching. We'll be able to take like screenshots and compare it. Like here's how tired they look with one. And look, now they're getting slightly better. They're getting slightly better. Oh, they had their second one.
Yeah.
It's just like the drop in faces, all the extra gray hair or no hair. Man, yeah. So changing gears one more time was so the game I got to play this week. Still on Hearthstone. Still really enjoying that one. But I decided that I need something with some meat. Like I wanted to play something, enjoy it, and beat it. So I went to my catalog and it was Batman Arkham City Origins. I think I might have discussed this last week now that I say it out loud. Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's great because there's like little missions, like the pause works perfectly. Just pause at any time and get out if you have to. It's set up in such a way that if you want to hop in, solve 2 crimes, or progress the story a little bit, leave. Perfect for sampling. These Batman games seem to be great from a new father perspective as far as meaty, like weighty, like really visceral and enjoyable. I mean, we had a previous episode talking about stress relief, and I think like beating up the way Batman beats up men in this game is really satisfying.
Yeah, that combat system with the rhythm to it is really nice, and when you get a good streak going, you're just like, I found the same with Shadow of Mordor. Like that one was, it's the same combat system.
Fluid, right?
Yeah, it's just really fluid, and you just feel so awesome. And yeah, the amount of stress release you get when an Urukai head goes flying through the air in slow motion, you're like, yeah, that feels pretty good.
So nothing like a little bit of murder to like release some of the release some of that baby stress.
Yeah, well, luckily this was pre-baby. I think I'd feel weird cheering like decapitation with the baby, at least in the room. I don't know.
Really? Would you honestly?
Actually, no. The zombie game I'm playing right now has plenty of it, and it doesn't bug me at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of a half interesting one because especially with like just back to the previous conversation, if we loop back, like there's a great cartoon series, Batman. Was it The Brave and the Bold?
No.
Yeah.
Am I saying that one right? Like it's super. It's much more cartoony and like a lot more like tongue in cheek, Adam West style cartoon stuff. So it's very like light fare.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, to the point where you would let your kid watch it because like like it's fighting, but it's like poof and bang and just slapstick type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But then your kid's like, I love Batman. Let's get this game. You're like, it's pretty gritty. There's a lot of bats to faces in that game. I don't know that. It's too quite appropriate. Yeah. Yeah, gentlemen, we did have a topic this week to discuss, but I think we've kind of pushed this one out as far as a timing thing. How are you feeling for?
Yeah, I think we got on a.
I think the topic that got unfortunately pushed to another time. Once the viewers or listeners understand what the topic was, it's very appropriate that we didn't get to it today.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So, just saying.
Yeah, so I'm too tired to catch that hint. Are you saying we should talk about it or not?
I'm saying that we should push it to the next episode because it would be funny.
Yeah, you have to... your keyboard? What's going on?
Oh man, I wish I could have. That would have been
that
amazing.
Giant mug of his is just it's full of like a hot toddy mixed with NyQuil.
Oh, so much NyQuil. No, see, I couldn't even do that because like if I got baby duties tonight, so like like that's gonna hurt like heck if I have to like.
Oh yeah. That's the thing is the old methods that like we used to be able to do when we did get sick, which would just be usually dose ourselves with a good whack of medication and then wrap ourselves in blankets and sweat it out and then do laundry.
You had me right up until the end there.
Oh, well, I don't know. If you have enough of a fever dream, you're not going to want to sleep in that bed again. But no, like that old way of just like, okay, I need 12 hours to recover myself, whether it be from exhaustion or illness or this or that. Having that luxury of being like, okay, I'm going to shut myself in a room in my little fortress of solitude. I'm going to take a weird bath thing with like some salt or whatever you put in them. I don't know. My wife's great at making baths that just cure everything. I don't know what goes in them. I don't ask. She just lets me know when the water's ready, and I enjoy. But yeah, those opportunities to just be like, I just need half a clock day to just recover my body. Like, you know, I have a feeling that those days are gone for a little while at least. Because, you know, we got some responsibility. But, you know, luckily the three of us all also have really great partners in our lives that can tag team when things do get rough.
Yeah, man,
you know, there's that sort of
it's like constant. It's kind of a bit of a thought, like constant in the back of my mind about just the respect that you develop for anybody who's had to do this alone.
Yeah.
The thought of not having like somebody else like as you're going through this, like that's like, man, that is amazing. Like that, anybody who's survived through that is like heroic. Like it's unbelievable to be able to do this like on your own. Because I mean, for this, like, I mean, I'm sure you two are the same way, but like, this is like murdered 2 people. Like this has just destroyed 2 of us. And like, if there's only one person available for it, like, man, like how it's remarkable. Like
it is.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. There's like a special place in Valhalla for them. Like they're just like super people. I don't understand how one person could shoulder all that responsibility. Like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And probably not a lot of video games. I mean, just like what a sacrifice. Yeah,
like there should be like a Batman style game about being a single parent, where it's like a rhythm combat game, but instead of fighting, it's like things like, you know, take the dog out, change a diaper. Like you have to like, you know, there's like a
like cartwheeling across the kitchen, like dishes, cartwheel back.
It's like that free flow housework navigation, and it's like, you know, you have to respond to an attack. So like the baby's puking, so you have to hit the button prompt so that way you can flip in time to use a towel to keep it from being too bad. It's just like things like that.
Press Y to change a diaper. Oh no, you're too late. It's on the walls now.
Yeah, and if you build up enough of a combo, like you can hit a combo button combination that's like nap time. You know, it's just like
bonus nap.
Bonus nap.
You should totally do that. It should be a text adventure, like one of those old school text video games. Like,
like Oregon Trail, but with
you walk into the room, you see nothing but the walls smeared with something. Do you investigate?
It's funny how it'll be a text adventure and it will actually have more poop than the text adventure about dysentery.
Jeez, so much. I have to wonder, like, sounds a little bit like Octodad. Like, I've never actually.
Yeah.
I think I own it, but I don't think I've ever actually played one of them. But from the trailers that I've ever seen, it kind of seems like you're just this octopus, like, mangling around the kitchen.
He's a regular person.
Yeah, he's not an octopus at all. He's a man.
Oh, sorry. Was that a spoiler? we get people writing into the show like, I had no idea that was an octopus. Thanks for ruining it.
Octodad is actually a scantily clad woman who's really good with a sniper rifle.
Quiet octopus, love it.
Very, very mild-mannered, soft-spoken, doesn't really talk much.
That's actually a good game. You should play that game because it kind of feels like the character you're controlling is what you're feeling like now.
Yeah,
you're just kind of semi-drunk and can't
so it's like
have all the things and
it's a parent simulator. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So in my off hours,
yeah,
from whenever I do play gaming, so I take a break from parenting, and the first thing I want to do is play a parenting sim. It's like Diaper Change 2.0. Can't wait to play this game.
Yep.
Oh, no, thanks. All right, I think let's wrap a bow on it for this week.
Sounds like a plan.
So, everyone, thanks for tuning in this week. If you'd like to get a hold of us, please hop over to our website, newdadgaming.com. We record this weekly. Any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, please send them along. And, yeah, rate and subscribe, all that other great stuff with the shows. My name is Trevor, and I have a 4-month-old.
My name is Gavin. I have an almost 2-month-old.
I'm Jeff. I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
I just noticed now at the end of the broadcast, neither of you have your bumpers on the bottom, and that
I
really
don't
makes
have any bumpers.
that really makes me look like a arrogant. Here's how important I am. I got my own bumper. Get that up next week, guys. Trying to run a tight ship here.
I don't know. I usually have it on, but I don't know why it's not on today. I'll take it up with the internet.
I'm sure you will get sincere, honest feedback. It should be fine.
I'll Google them a question and see what they say.
This was the last time we ever saw Gavin. He disappeared into the Matrix that night.
Yeah. Lesson learned. Don't taunt the internet.
Mm-hmm. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Yeah.